Let's Talk Herd.
Hi, Sheila.
Hi.
Thank you so much for joining me. And yeah, I haven't really been that concerned about what we're going to talk about because I just feel like it's going to be a girl who I just feel her. I want to tell you this story just to start. It's not very long, but one time when I was in Texas, actually at Allison and Sharon's ranch, they have a she was a wild mare, and now she's in their herd, and she's called Lightning. And I had this incredible experience with her. She sort of communicated to me that she's a voice for horses, and that's what she wants to be. She wants to communicate, and the way that I translated it was that she wants to write a book, but I think that was just my human thing at the time, sort of trying to make sense of what she was saying. And it was just her energy was like, I want people to hear me. I want to be heard. And that's kind of what I feel when I think of Girl, Your Mare. So yeah, I don't know where you want to start, but maybe you could just tell us a bit of the history and her life. Yeah, whatever feels right to you.
Wow. Well, when I met her, she was 10 and I was 40. I'm pretty sure 40 or 42 maybe. And she just seemed like a really fun kind of fat pony at the time. And the girl who she was with at the time was coming to the ranch. I was living with and training with this woman that was a Canadian Olympic 3-day eventer. And
wow.
And the girl's person at the time was a young teenage girl who was really tall, and she was a really, really easygoing, fabulous rider, and totally unflappable, and girl looked like just this funny kind of fat pony, except she had absolutely phenomenal movement and strength and grace when she was moving. And the girl had really outgrown her. She was like 5'10" or something like that. And she ended up trading Girl for a big thoroughbred that the woman's name was Janine, who I was living and training with.
Okay.
And for some reason, Girl wouldn't let anybody ride her except me or Janine.
Oh, wow.
And so
it was cool. What did she do to
well,
people?
she would take off on the kids. Like we ran summer camps for kids that wanted to do 3-day eventing, because Janine had a complete cross-country facility and everything there. And Girl would just she would just take off, and the kids couldn't stop her. It was hilarious. I mean, the kids were teenagers, and they were all fun, good riders and everything anyway.
Yeah.
So for some reason, she let me ride her, and she let Janine, ride her and do things with her body. She didn't have a lot of schooling, but she was a really natural athlete, and had a lot of capacity. And Janine sort of assigned her to me because she always had so many horses in training. She just said, well, you can be her person. And so I really, really bonded with her. And Girl hadn't evented before. And I don't even know if she jumped before, but everything was completely natural and easy to her. So I got to compete on her for I think the first 2 years, and it was because she was Janine's horse, like she owned her and she was for sale. Um, I didn't have to pay for my competitions and stuff. She was part of the sale horses. So I had
Okay.
so much fun with her and we bonded, like,
Wow.
and and then let me see. Oh yeah, she was for sale and people came to look at her, but she wouldn't let anybody ride her. So um, Janine approached me, um, and I had a 5-year-old Belgian warm blood at the time that was supposed to be in training, but he was always put to the end of the list because of everything. But
Hmm.
anyway, Janine offered to swap. She said, would you like to
Oh,
have her
wow.
and I'll take your 5-year-old? And I
Wow.
said, I just burst into tears. And I found myself saying yes. And oh my God, like now, what have I done now? But that's how she came to be in my
So
life.
was that your thing? Just to
Yeah.
interrupt, like eventing, was
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
that's what your
It was,
love?
yeah, my love and passion and dream, really. I'd dreamed of 3-day eventing all of my adult
Hmm.
life and never knew how I could get involved with it because I didn't have an income or a substantial income that required. And
Mm.
when I met Janine and asked her if she accepted working students, I was 40, and she said, well, of course. So I just like packed everything up and said to Frank, I'm going
Wow,
off
that's
to the ranch.
amazing.
It's 3 hours away from where we lived, and you know I'll visit you once a month or something. So off I went, and put myself in training with her, and was absolutely in my glory, living and working at the ranch, and uh, you know
That's
yeah,
great.
yeah, riding all day every day and doing all the farm ranch
Yeah.
work. And there were 130 cows as well, so I got to learn all about cows and calving, and
Yeah.
yeah, and on and on. But
That's
yeah,
amazing.
and
Wow.
lucky me, I got to the first couple of years I competed on a couple of the school horses, which were, I think one of them was about 20, and he was just, you just sit on his back and win everything. It was
Mm.
really great. And then
Yeah.
I got to, ride Girl, and she was really, really technical and perfectionist, and absolutely did not want to be um, kind of interfered with or told what to do. She did things her
Mm.
way. um, yeah, so that was a quite an adjustment from uh, one horse to the other. Yeah.
Yeah. So what happened then? What happened with your eventing? Where did that go?
I got to a certain level and then realized I didn't have the money to go any
Mm.
further. And she easily could have. Like by that time, she was about maybe 14. So we'd been eventing for 3 or 4 years. And I think we were up to, in Canada, they call it training level, but I think in the
Mm.
States it's called novice. And I think the
Yeah, okay.
fences are 3 feet 6. And then I forget what the
Yeah.
galloping speed is, but that was dead easy for her. And
Yeah, I think that's the same in the
is it?
UK
Yeah.
because they have a novice and then there's pre-novice, novice, and then intermediate,
Mm,
I think.
yeah. So that I sort of,
Yeah.
um, was uh, financially kind of not able to go any further. And then we ended up doing a big move to a farm at the coast, and I brought her with me, and I'd met this British woman who was a really perfectionist. Well, she was a dressage. She had been an eventer, but she was a dressage, kind of master, if that's a word you can use, and
Mm.
extremely perfectionist and detailed. And when she
Mm.
saw a girl and I, she was absolutely gaga. She said, "Oh my God, let's like, let's do something with you guys." And I said, "Well, I
Mm.
would like to keep eventing, but my dressage is really, uh, she has the capacity, but she doesn't want to be. She doesn't want me to tell her what to do or anything like that." And so we started training with her, and I ended up training with her full time, like 5 days a week for 14 more years. And
Wow.
she could ride girl. Girl loved her. And she was so technical and so um, precise and perfectionist that girl could cope with that. And so
Mm.
she would always, train girl first, and then I would get on after. And then I could sort of ride that wave for a bit. But then girl would say, like, "That's wrong. Get off. That's not right." So I felt really, really, really inadequate, in terms of like actually helping girl's body become like retain its um, you know uh,
Mm.
suspension and her elegance and gymnastic ability and all that, which she had in
Mm.
spades. But if she won't let you adjust her and ask for bends and more of this or more of that to help her be even to be really adjustable and directable, really is what it amounted to, because she just
Mm.
couldn't tolerate being directed to do anything except if it was extremely subtle.
Yeah.
So in all the
That's really
yeah,
interesting.
so
Yeah.
that was my
Why do you think that was? Because she.
I think because she was incredibly sensitive, like incredibly,
Mm.
incredibly sensitive. Like you could really just, you know how when your thoughts translate into the body. So just thinking,
Mm.
like I'm just, thinking, lifting my sternum, and the effect that has on the rest of the body. And that was
Mm.
plenty for her. Um,
Yeah.
but I honestly don't know, like what, I mean, maybe it was just she was fine the way she was and didn't want to be, you know, uh, manipulated or or
Yeah.
asked to do anything that she didn't choose to do at the time or something. I don't know. She's so
Yeah.
completely self-directed and independent, and like when we were
Mm.
jumping, she could jump from any spot, like absolutely any spot, from anywhere, any height. It didn't matter. She could jump the moon from, backwards, forwards, and sideways. But she didn't
Mm.
want to be asked to put in another stride or jump from this particular spot or anything like that. Yeah. And I didn't want
Yeah.
to
She wanted
clash
to.
wills
Yeah.
with her. Um,
Yeah.
so I kind of just you know, pointed where we were going and let her do the calculations. Yeah, if that makes any sense.
It's probably the best way, though. It's probably the best way.
Yeah, I think,
Is it
well,
just.
from the information I was given, it's really great to a certain level, but there has to come a time when, I don't know, there has to be more of a partnership and there
Mm.
and a mutual kind of communication and yeah,
Mm.
acceptance of each other. And it kind of feel like
Yeah.
I never kind of had that with her. It's like she has to be in charge, and that's all there all there is to it. Yeah,
Yeah. That's really
yeah,
interesting. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. I love the sort of physical nature of that as well. Like there's some horses where, like in my experience of riding before, that it was about the engagement itself. Like they felt, instead of it being a kind of liberation, it was more of a like an imprisonment in a way.
Yeah. Yeah.
I always felt like that sort of, like at the time, I felt like that came back to a physical thing because it was a bit um, like having a chain on a bike, and like when the chain's connected, it sort of asks the whole bike. I don't know if this is a very good analogy, but it asks the whole thing to stretch and to like the mechanism to kind of work
Yeah.
fully.
Yeah.
And it's like there's something about that for some horses, it's really challenging. And I don't know if it's because of what I always used to feel was that it was like there was some part of them that was damaged or
Yeah.
that just couldn't do
Mm-hmm.
that. So like they had to control, they had to put up these defensive barriers, like you can't do that with my body.
Yeah.
And sometimes it was even like a congenital thing.
Well, she
Like one,
definitely had a long lumbar spine, which is a real disadvantage.
yeah,
And
yeah.
there was some baggage that she came with. Like the girl that had her originally, she got her from a meat truck dealer, so she had been
Oh wow.
shipped,
Yeah,
to auction. Um,
yeah.
so yeah, and she exhibited symptoms of, some kind of physical damage or concussion or
Mm,
something like that. So there were definitely
yeah,
some limitations there. Yeah.
yeah. It's like they know their body and they know
Yeah.
what they can allow themselves to do, and
Yeah.
you can sort of feel
Yeah.
that. Yeah. So fascinating because it is so, there's so much like capacity for sensitivity
Yeah.
and awareness.
Yeah.
Like I became really obsessed with the sense of tension, like that sense of tension. And it's quite um insidious. I don't know if that's the right word. It's
Yeah.
quite hard
Yeah.
always to kind of, like, sometimes I think you can just get used to it because it gives them this form, this sort of, but it gives them this one dimensional feeling about their body. And it's like, I don't know, I just feel like where I am now with it, I feel like that comes from the whole control, what I call the control paradigm itself,
Yeah.
like at all assuming anything, which is fairly extreme, but it's like the difference. And but then it's such a, like it's at so much at its like birth, I feel, for me, like it feels like it almost doesn't even exist
Yeah.
yet. But I've got this, like, I'm sure there's a way that you can have their full, and not even because you're asking them, but because they want to
Mm-hmm.
join with you in that.
Mm-hmm.
And then that's just a completely different thing. So, like, what you're talking about with her, like, really makes me think of that, of how for horses like her, it could be if it was completely, like, in a way up to them.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
I just did a really interesting podcast with Barbara King, and she was talking about, she has this thing called relationship riding that she's developed. Um, she was talking about how, like, she didn't want to go into it too much, I think, because she wants people to buy the book. But she was saying that she's got these ways of like working with horses where they know that you're, like, what they need is a leader. And this is where I've totally got to at the moment. Like, why? Like, why? Why do they need a leader? And I know that that's so fundamental. It's like such a deeply held human, like, belief. And I think it's because it kind of justifies everything.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that's the case with her,
Yeah.
but I'm saying that it's like a justification of then if they need a leader, then, we have to be a leader, and then we have to act like a leader, and a leader is able to direct and guide and
Yeah.
all the rest of it. But what if they don't need a
Yeah,
leader?
and what if leadership
Like, what
doesn't
if
look
we,
like directing and guiding? Yeah. And
yeah,
that's how
what if it's
girl
an
was
anchor?
in the herd. You know,
Ah,
um she was definitely um like I called her the wisdom keeper, or the leader
oh,
that leads from
yeah.
behind without any visible
Mm,
um indications. Yeah, she's the space holder, probably
yeah.
in a wild herd would be the one that knows the routes to the water holes,
Mm,
the one that is that whole space for everybody. Like there's so many different ways of being a leadership,
mm,
um and if I knew then what I know now, I would have had a a much different relationship with her then, because of because of what I've learned. Really in the last years of her life, how
mm,
our relationship naturally evolved, to being a um, more of a friendship relationship, and a non-riding
mm.
relationship. But to see
Yeah.
her in a herd, and her her you call it an energy bubble, or anyway, her it was
Mm,
probably at least 50-meter diameter. Like nobody
wow.
was inside her energy bubble, nobody. And in the 22 years that she lived with me, I saw her have a relationship with only two horses that she allowed into her energy bubble, that she wanted to connect with. They were both mares,
Really?
and she it was extremely horrible for her to be separated from them. And I didn't own
Mm,
either of these mares. They both belonged to other people. So when they left, it was like she literally
mm.
screamed for quite a few days. Yeah.
Wow.
And I mean,
Yeah.
I never would have suspected that from her, because she was always just so like, she didn't show emotion, and she was just so like
Yeah.
holding space for everyone.
Yeah. It's almost like she could do that, but then the other way around was hard for her.
Yeah.
Like when she did that, when she was someone else's sort of
Yeah.
child, that was when she was at her most vulnerable, and then losing that was just
Yeah.
so,
Yeah.
terrible.
And this, I guess, the same with humans. Like she didn't let many people get near her, like, or get into her energy. Yeah.
Mm,
And the one she
yeah.
did, she really, it was either yes or no. And it was, that sort of black and white and clear. Yes, you're
Yeah.
in. No, you're not. And if you're not, you stay far, far away. Yeah.
What you say about her reminds me of actually a pony that I had for quite a long time, because I saw her when she was only a year old and she was still with her mum.
Mm.
And she was just so sweet. She was a Dartmoor cross thoroughbred. So she was not tiny like a Dartmoor, but she wasn't that
Yeah.
big. She was about 14 pounds. But we kind of didn't know anything then, and we just made the mistake of, the farmer just brought her with her mother, took her out of this cattle truck, and then just took her mother back in and drove
Oh
off.
my
And oh my God. And I just, so that was the first sort of, breach. with her, just in a way, or
Mm.
just, and she never really, I don't think she ever really healed that uh, until, because she was very, very sensitive, really sensitive like that. And it was the same. She was really similar riding, like if you were incredibly correct. So she was really good for people to learn on in those days, because you had to be, if you weren't sitting like upright enough, or you did, or you just, if you did anything that wasn't, what she considered, she just wouldn't move. And then when people were able to, she would just become like, she would just glide, she was so smooth. But we had a similar, like, there was just this defensive barrier that never really, like, it was almost like the closer you could get to that intimacy, that I think when it's physical like that, when it's engagement, it has to be physical. There's a certain physicality that has to be there. And she couldn't do that
Mm.
for whatever reason. And I don't, maybe it was more emotional with her, but she had a long back as well. So I don't know if it was something physical. But when she was like in her 20s, I was staying with someone who used essential oils, and we just gave her this rose one day to smell, and roses for grief. And she smelled it for ages, and she even wanted to taste it. And I thought of her because she was really, really dominant, but in a kind of aggressive, more of an aggressive way. So she didn't let people really in, but she had some horse friends like that she got really close to, and
Mm.
really similar. But anyway, when she smelled this rose, she just lay down.
Oh.
This day after it, she just lay down for hours, and I think she was
Yeah.
healing that thing with her mother. And then the next year, she died. She just said to me one day, this is it today. And
Wow.
I was like, and she'd had a few of these strange kind of almost like colics, but they weren't really. They were something metabolic. There was something that wasn't
Mm.
quite right, but it wasn't like I just would treat her and she would be okay again. And then she just told me that day. And I just took her out for a walk, and we walked around the yard, and we and she ate some hay, and she said, I want to go back to the herd now because I'm ready to go. And at that time, I thought she meant call the vet and everything. So I actually did call a vet. But we went in the gateway, and she lay down and she was gone, like
Wow.
within a minute. She just lay down and she was gone. She just wanted to be in close to that. I wasn't even able to shut the gate because it was that sort of quick. And I just kept thinking that it was that time with the rose that she just healed and she
Oh.
was ready.
Wow.
It was just, yeah. But I always felt so, so close to her. But she couldn't reciprocate really, because I think just the circumstances, how that had happened with her
Mm.
mother. Yeah. So did you feel with girl like you did when she was still in her
Like
body, that you
connect with
did?
her, you mean? Or
Like go through that.
yeah, when well I she was in full-time riding training till I think she was 28 and a half, and then I had one of the
Wow.
other horses stomped on my foot and smashed it, so I had to take a few months off riding. Um, and I did,
Mm.
and so that was the beginning of a new sort of way of being with her. Like, she was really fit, and everything was going really well. And then Ghoulies, do you know Ghoulies Unlu? Do you know her? She's
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
she moved on to our farm and lived with us for a couple of years, and she introduced me to having sitting
Oh,
meditations with
cool.
horses. And so I was absolutely like
Yes.
gobsmacked um, at how easy it was for the horses to just become that for people. And like I'd lived with all these horses for
Mm.
all these years, and I didn't know. I mean, I was, just feel a bit kind of out of the, you know, out of it really. I had no
Oh,
idea that my horses could
so
do this.
crazy.
And so I'm sitting in meditation in that, like, we just put the chairs out in the paddock. The horses could come and go. There was no restrictions on them. The horses could engage or not engage or just do. And the people were just guided to, we just sit in the chairs. Ghoulies guided us into a beautiful meditation, and we sat there, and I had to keep my eyes open because I was just amazed at, at all these horses that I've lived with for so many years. They're just like, they're going up to people and just standing there with them in certain positions or not, or touching
Wow.
them or not. And it was so obvious that there was some really profound um, energetic exchange and healing going on. And I don't know what it was, but I had asked everyone, would it be all right if I take photographs? And so I took hundreds of
So
photographs,
cool.
because here's my horses doing these things with people that I had no idea they
Mm.
could or even would do this, like not with me. None of them came up to me and did
Really?
anything, but just
Wow.
all of these beautiful people. They were like doing these amazing, who knows what with, and people, we'd gather afterwards, and Ghoulies and I would ask people if they felt to share what they
Mm.
experienced, or what it meant to them, or anything. And the stories, the things that people were saying that they
That's
experienced,
amazing.
because of the horses'
Yeah.
energies. And none of these people were horse people at
Wow.
all. They're like, there were some kids that were from a um, drug addiction rehab
Mm.
center, came, and there was another woman who was a school principal. There was an a really elder lady, and her son came, and people from all walks of life were coming to these meditations. And I just got to
That's amazing.
witness these these
Do you think they
miracles
didn't connect
happening
with you because
right
it
in.
wasn't your, like, that wasn't, you were there for the other people, like you were supporting the situation?
Yeah, I don't know. I did feel a little envious, to tell you the truth.
Yeah.
Like, you've never talked to me like that, and here you are talking to these people you've never met before.
It's so amazing, though, isn't it?
It was really, really, really amazing. And two sessions that really, really still um stood out and are still so alive in my heart. Or um one session was, um, girl walked over to Ghoulies, and Ghoulies always kept a uh, what do you call it, a
Mm.
clipboard and writing paper, and girl would like stand there
Oh
and
my
look at
God.
her, and Ghoulies would be writing all this stuff down that girl was like transmitting to her. You right, and then in one of those transmissions, Ghoulie said, she looked up and she looked at this woman and she said, "Girl told me that you could really benefit from a cranial balancing. Would you like to have
Wow.
that?" And I was, oh my
That's
God.
amazing.
So Ghoulies went over to this woman, and I have photographs of it. And girl walked right with her, and Ghoulies did a like a corpus callosum balancing with it, really simply. And then, let me see, after a while, a girl was standing right there with her head right in, intimately with
Wow.
the two of them. Then Ghoulie stepped back, and the woman was sitting, and girl stepped forward right to her, and she took her head and went like this,
Oh my
back from one
God.
shoulder to the other. Yeah,
That's amazing.
like it's so amazing. And then the other one that really stands out was we had formed the circle, and there was a woman that was coming, and she was going to be a bit late, and she arrived, and I'd kept the chair right beside me, and we knew that she had absolutely no experience and had never been around horses
Mm.
at all before. So I wanted her to be beside me so that I could keep her comfortable around the horses. Well, she sat down, girl walked right up to her and stood with her head right here in front of her for, I don't know, more than half an
Wow.
hour. And the woman was visibly, crying. She was I think a Thai woman. I'm quite sure she's from Thailand. And then afterwards, and she didn't say anything the whole time. And afterwards, I asked her, like, really gently, if she felt at all like sharing
Mm.
anything. I said, because the girl is my horse, and this is new to me,
Mm.
and I'm just really curious. And if you feel to share anything, I would be
Mm.
so
Yeah,
grateful to
absolutely.
know. And so she said, um, a couple of years ago, my baby
Oh,
died, and my husband has left me because he feels that I should have finished grieving by now.
wow.
So I waited, if she wanted to say any more, and she said, and when your horse stood there with me, I felt for the first time that my grief was being completely uh, um, honored and held. That there's no reason for me to stop grieving. That it's right for me to grieve, and I just feel so, like, totally witnessed and honored in this grieving. It was just so amazing.
That's, I can feel that.
It's incredibly beautiful. That's my horse, who who I've had this amazing relationship with for so many years, and didn't, like, how could I have missed that part of her?
I don't think you did, though. I think that we just know, I think that part of us that connects with them is just always there. Just it's like a different part, it's like your mind part that maybe hasn't caught up yet. But I think she was like doing the same thing for you.
Yeah, quite likely. Yeah.
Yeah, it is just,
Yeah.
they're just such incredible beings. Yeah, I think like so often we just see that one dimension of them, and it's difficult.
Yeah. And that yeah, and I'd forgotten my childhood dream of being with horses, in that childhood way, that childhood innocent
Yes. Yeah.
way of
Yeah.
just being, and not having an
Absolutely.
agenda of becoming, becoming whatever.
How can you
Yeah.
not lose that when I mean, you just do, don't you? I know that I feel like
Yeah.
I did
Yeah.
totally. Like, I don't know if those two worlds can really unite in
Mm.
that,
Yeah.
because you have to
Yeah.
be a certain way to kind of push through that, because it is an agenda. Like it is and I know that people, because I don't know, I always question myself about this, because I like, wonder if I'm just wasting all this time, with the horses and not using them and not, but it's just so
Mm.
because I could be doing all that, but there's so much of a weight in that. Like I feel now for me to do that, I think it's almost like when I feel it energetically, it feels like when you're in it and you're doing it, and you're doing it enough, it's like you've lifted this big, heavy weight and you've got it on these tracks, like these chain tracks, and it's moving and it can move. And like you can do like amazing
Yeah.
things, and
Yeah.
you can work amazing hours, you can achieve things with horses and you can keep it running on those tracks. But as soon as you give it a bit of
Yeah.
space, like and do like what you were doing there, it's like that weight comes back. And like, how do you lift that again? Like, how do you take that and get it moving again? And I don't know what I feel that weight is it's actually their resistance to what we're
Mm.
insisting that they do. But then again, I think, well, maybe but my mind tells me, well, that it's not necessarily true that all of the horses that, there's horses. I was reading about a French show jumper who, he really cares about his horses and he's really has a relationship with them and they do really well. And so, like, there's all that, it's like, that's not necessarily wrong. But then
Mm-hmm.
it still feels like there's that. And maybe it's just an individual thing, that when you,
Yeah, it's whatever sort of track you get on, it cultivates and builds its
yeah,
own momentum,
exactly.
doesn't it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's true.
And then to change tracks or go in a different direction, that takes an
Yeah,
enormous amount of energy to
yeah,
shift trajectories, really. And I mean, it can take something like serious
yeah.
injuries or illnesses or um, the like for us, the farm that we leased being sold and suddenly having to move, and then everything just that's a lot of energy that has to disperse and sort of configure
That's
itself.
true. So maybe it's not really, the resistance isn't really in the horses. Maybe it's just resistance, like in terms of what you're like here to do. Like, why? I don't know. I don't
Yeah.
know.